examines its benefits and drawbacks in the Geography programme.
The beauty of Scotland's countryside is famed throughout the world. The Highlands, with their superb mix of land and water, are one of the few wild and remote corners left in this overcrowded island of ours. For centuries, land use in Scotland has been dominated by agriculture and forestry. But in recent years, this beautiful landscape has come under threat from an industry which is growing faster than any other. Edinburgh, one of the world's most beautiful capital cities. It attracts thousands of visitors every year. They come by air, by road, and by rail.
Everyone enjoys going on holiday, getting away from it all. Holidays give us the opportunity to travel, to explore new and exciting places, to meet other people, just to relax and enjoy ourselves, to be tourists. And that's exactly why I've come here to Scotland. Having seen all the adverts and the glossy brochures, I decided to pack my bags and become a tourist myself for a few days, and to take a closer look at this huge and important British industry.
Tourism involves the movement of millions of people. Tourists from overseas visiting our country. There were 18 million of them last year. And we shouldn't forget that when we go off on holiday, we become tourists as well. Businesses both great and small rely on travellers. Bus and coach companies, hotels, restaurants, shops, travel agents, all of them catering for their every need. When people go on holiday, they tend to spend a lot of money. As a result, £24.5 billion goes into the British economy every year. Nearly 1.5 million people in this country owe their jobs to tourism. I was keen to sample some of the atmosphere of Edinburgh and see what attracts so many people to the city. So I paid a visit to the Tourist Information Centre.
Next, please.
Hello. I've just arrived on the train from London. It's my first trip to Scotland, and I want to spend a couple of days here in Edinburgh. I just wondered if you could tell me what there is to see and do.
There's a lot of things to see and do at the moment. We've actually arrived at a very good time. It's in the middle of the festival.
The centre seems to be the first port of call for most new visitors to the city, and the staff have to deal with questions on a whole variety of subjects.
Oh, right, OK. OK, how long does this go on for, then?
It will be going on until the beginning of September. There are events on every day, so you won't have a problem finding something to do.
As I discovered, the festival acts like a giant magnet. The city literally bursts at the seams with all the extra visitors, not to mention the hundreds of performers from all around the globe.
Thank you.
And I'm also trying to get you to come see a show.
Of course.
Every street corner seems to have its own personal theatre group, bringing enjoyment to young and old alike.
While tourism can bring considerable benefits to an area, it can also cause huge headaches. Masses of people flooding into a city in their cars and coaches bring noise, dirt, wear and tear, and congestion to already crowded streets.
And the problem isn't going to go away. It's predicted that the number of car owners will double by the year 2025. And if steps aren't taken soon, then the opportunities created by tourism could be lost.
can go around the various regimental museums up here and learn the story.
In an effort to avoid the worst of the traffic, I hopped on an open-top bus to visit Scotland's most popular tourist attraction, Edinburgh Castle. During the festival, the castle's esplanade is home to the Edinburgh Tattoo and the 200,000 visitors who come from all over the world to view the spectacle.
Who's here from Wales and England? From Ireland and Scotland?
But Scotland doesn't just consist of the major cities of Edinburgh and Glasgow. To the north lie other popular tourist destinations: the Isle of Skye, Fort William, Glencoe and Loch Lomond. It's Britain's largest expanse of fresh water. For hundreds of years, travellers came to Scotland in a variety of ways. Some came on horseback, others on foot. But tourism has really taken off over the last 30 years, thanks to one modern invention. The picturesque village of Luss on Loch Lomond side has benefited from another modern invention. Its big selling point is that it's the setting for the popular television series Take the High Road. Visitors arrive by car and coach to soak up the atmosphere and maybe buy a souvenir or two for the folks back home. The income from tourism can be vital in keeping many rural communities alive.
So on our trip in Loch Lomond now. Any more sailing now? Come away now.
At its best, tourism should be an enjoyable experience for the visitor and the local community. Pleasant, relaxing, a chance to learn new skills. However, the dream can so easily turn into a nightmare. Tourists can bring noise and disruption to what were previously tranquil, idyllic spots. Few settings in the world have inspired such strong emotions among its visitors as the bonny banks of Loch Lomond. They symbolise the wild and unspoilt nature of the Scottish Highlands. But as the numbers of tourists to Scotland has escalated, there were 15 million of them last year, so concern has mounted about the effects these visitors are having on the landscape. The Highlands are where people come to seek adventure and peace and quiet away from the noise of the big cities. But are we in danger of destroying the very beauty that attracted us here in the first place? Too many feet is the problem on Ben Lomond. In recent years, there's been a move away from gentle activities such as touring and sightseeing to more active pursuits such as walking, mountain biking and climbing. But can the fragile hillside cope with the pressure of all those extra boots? I met up with Ranger Stuart Poulsen from the National Trust for Scotland, who are responsible for looking after the mountain. It is, yeah. You get a fantastic
Don't
view.
fall off the hill.
How high have we climbed so far?
Here about 400 metres.
Oh, yeah. How many people climb this path every year?
About 100,000 in excess of. Largest majority during the summer months. During the summer months, around 5,000 to 6,000 a week.
Now that must cause an awful lot of wear and tear to the path.
Well, if you look down here, you can see the problems that have been over the past, and the group here are now trying to reinstate the path, a good path line. But it's a long process. Wait a second. To get the water off the path is the most important thing, and get it off as quick as possible. This is where these kind of structures, this is a water bar. It's set at an angle in excess of 45 degrees to the hill, so that as the water is running off the path, running down the path, it hits the side of this water bar here, and is guided down and off and onto the side of the hill as a soakaway. This stops it coming round the corner here and washing out this whole path. Without these, the water would just follow its own way, because water will follow the line of least resistance, and the path is the easiest way down the hill. If the path does break down because of water, people move to the other side of the path because they don't want to walk through the mud, as there's mud there. So they move to the side of the path, and the side of the path then gets damaged, and that gets wet, and so on, and so on, and so on. You can get paths. There was a path in the Lake District was, I believe, something in the region of 85 metres wide. It could be seen by satellite. It isn't there now because they did a lot of work on it to bring it, to reinstate it again. And now it's a 2 metre wide pitch surface, and it's beautiful.
Who are the people who are doing all the hard work here?
At the moment, these are willing volunteers from the National Trust for Scotland Conservation Volunteer Groups. They give up their own time and come on the hill, work, get dirty, get wet, get miserable for nothing. They love to do it.
Why do so many people come to Ben Lomond?
Well, apart from the view, you mean? Well, as I said, it's just beautiful here. You've got Glasgow, an hour that way. Edinburgh, an hour and a half that way. Stirling, an hour that way. 3/4 of the population of Scotland live within an hour and a half of this hill.
Would you rather they didn't come at all?
No, not at all. No. I believe in the moral right to roam Scotland, and it should be upheld. Because we have some beautiful scenery, and we should carry on walking it for as long as humanly possible.
My trip took me still further north to the majestic scenery of Glencoe. On the sunny day I visited, it was hard to believe that this beautiful place is best known for the bloody massacre of the MacDonald clan in 1692. It offers some of the finest walking and climbing country in the Highlands. But the majority of tourists who come to Glencoe to enjoy the scenery and the fresh mountain air do so without moving from the car park. But as roads are improved and penetrate further and further into the remoter parts of the country, so the wild land has become less and less. Among the first to notice this trend were walkers and climbers in search of solitude and wide open spaces. Writer and broadcaster Rennie McOwen knows this wild and dramatic country as well as any.
Rennie, you must have seen some changes on these hills over the years with the increase in the numbers of people coming here, have you?
Oh, very much so. I mean, places like Glencoe were always popular in the folk mind, so to speak, because of its notorious history, the massacre and so on, and spectacular mountain scenery. That always brought people. And then the improvement of the modern roads, that upped it. And then particularly after the Second World War, we had an increase in people going to the hills to hill walk or to rock climb or ice climb. That pushed it up again. Tourism has grown greatly in Scotland in modern times. That pushed it up again. In fact, some people would argue that tourism in some areas is almost at pollution levels. I think it's not so much with people the problems begin, it's with facilities for them. I'm not one for turning people off the hills, or I'm all for the freedom. If people want to go, they should go. I think there might be a case in some instances of making it harder to go to certain places where you're not allowed to take your car up certain glens, where a bridge is not put in, and if the burn's in spate, then the burn's in spate and you can't cross and you go back.
Looking after the visitors' facilities in Glencoe is the job of the Glens owners, the National Trust for Scotland. Their visitors' centre provides a welcome stopping-off point for the traveller. When it opened 15 years ago, it was thought that about 40,000 people a year would use it. Last year, it attracted 166,000 visitors. Why was it built?
We were having problems with indiscriminate parking, fouling of the glen, a litter problem, and it was thought that if they provided facilities here at the lower end of the glen, they could then perhaps prevent the problems that were happening in the glen. I think the first thing we have to bear in mind is that we've got a main road running through the place, so therefore people are travelling anyway. A lot of people come to Glencoe because they have heard about it, either from the point of view of its scenery or the historical side of it, the Massacre of Glencoe.
Glencoe was bought by the National Trust in 1935, using money raised by a wealthy mountaineer, Percy Unna. His great desire was to keep the land as natural and unspoilt as possible, so that visitors to the mountains could enjoy them in all their glory.
He laid down quite tight rules or wishes for the running of mountain properties. And one of these, that there should be no man-made structures on the property, and no facilities for food and drink, and no access for wheeled vehicles other than the modern roads which were already there, and so on. I think as time has gone on, he has been proven to be right. Because if a visitor centre has been put up on the side of a mountain or on a mountain property, it has almost invariably hauled in large numbers of people.
Unna did not make rules. Unna suggested various ways in which the glen could be maintained in its sort of wild form. And the Trust has done that. We have to remember that this was 1935. We now live in 1991. And, for example, there is contention about the bridges over the River Coe. These bridges are there for good reason. They're there to help people who fall on the mountains. And in fact, the bridges are there with the full support of the local mountaineering rescue team.
But then the bridges were used for tourism purposes, and thousands were poured across, and are still poured across the bridges, thus eroding the hill ground. So, what would people say if you went into your favourite art gallery and looked at your favourite painting and somebody had drawn a line down it? Or you looked at a marvellous building and somebody had sprayed graffiti on it? Now, to scar a hillside, a beautiful hillside, it's exactly the same.
But tourists are going to continue visiting Glencoe. So what's the solution?
My own personal view is that I would like to see this present site used. I'd like to see the building extended. There is a contentious matter of our car park, which is a bit obvious, that's very true. I would suggest perhaps that we could reduce that in size, and we could produce another car park which would be totally hidden away. I'd like to see the centre itself extended to perhaps twice its size to accommodate the facilities which we have.
The motivation was good. Let's educate people, let's control people, but it hasn't turned out like that. It's turned out to be a kind of Frankenstein. And I think the time has come to cheerfully admit the error and look for different solutions.
The problems Scotland faces are repeated countless times around the globe. Our beautiful landscapes will always attract large numbers of tourists. If we want to continue enjoying their splendour and preserve them for the future, then we need some urgent answers. The balance between exploiting our environment for tourism and conserving it is a delicate one. Why is it so important to get the balance right?
It's very hard to define why wilderness should matter to people, but I think a study of literature, for example, would show that wilderness does matter to people very much indeed, and almost has a spiritual quality. And I think if mankind ever loses that, something essential to our being will have gone out of the world.
A video on the recent school television series The Global Environment is now available. If you'd like an order form for this or the notes that accompany the geography